On today's show, we have Sean McEvoy joining the show today. We get into the quarterback matchup that happened in the CFB National Championship. Also, too, we throw out a scenario to him. If he got a call from Matt Ryan tomorrow, what are the things that he'd work on with Matty Ice? Welcome back to the Fan Show. I just want to say Happy New Year. This is the first podcast of 2017. I hope you guys had an awesome holiday season. I'm Alex Berger, and we're part of fansfavoritefan.com. So after you listen to this podcast, be sure to check out fansfavoritefan.com because we got a lot of great articles that have just recently come out, a lot of articles about the NBA. So if you're into the NBA, be sure to check those articles out after you listen to this podcast. And I just want to give a congratulations to the Alabama Crimson Tide for winning the CFB National Championship. That was here in Atlanta, and I just want to talk briefly about what happened before the game because there was a lot of craziness going on. What ended up happening was, if you're not familiar with the story, that a lot of people before the game had trouble getting into the game because of the president arriving, and that a lot of these fans were just out in the miserable cold and the cold rain that was going on. Also, too, there was a lot of problems with the automated tickets because there were no paper tickets. It was just on your phone. It was automated through the internet, and the national championship people didn't communicate well that you had to download apps. So you had a lot of people there downloading this app, taking up the Georgia World Congress Wi-Fi, and you had pretty much everyone, thousands of people on the Georgia World Congress Center's Wi-Fi, so that slowed everything down for people trying to download that app, trying to get into that game. And I've been in somewhat of a similar situation. It wasn't as big of a crowd as the national championship game, and wasn't as big of a stage as having the president there, but I've been to a state championship where a similar situation happened, even though that's, I want to say, probably 2,000 people compared to how many thousands of seats a Mercedes-Benz Stadium has. But we were, as one game was ending and letting out on one side of the Georgia Dome, they were only letting a certain side in. So I know how annoying that can be when you want to get into the game and you just have to wait in a line forever. And I know the cold and the miserable rain didn't really help anything. But I want to give Atlanta credit because I was involved with the media day that was going on and a lot with the fanfare. And I just want to say Atlanta really put on a great show. I saw the concerts were awesome. Kendrick Lamar at halftime was awesome. The setup that they had at the Centennial Olympic Park was just really cool. And I feel like Atlanta rolled out the red carpet for the national championship, and all the stuff that was involved, I feel like was great leading up to the game, but you had that huge hiccup with the crowds being out there and having people not be able to get into the game. I know that has to be frustrating. That has to be frustrating, especially when the Secret Service, I heard, shut down areas of the stadium for a good chunk of time. And when the Secret Service says, "Hey, you got to do this," you got to do it. So there was a lot of just logistical things involved that I don't think people took. I don't think a lot of people just thought it through. And I hope when we host the Super Bowl and the Final Four that Atlanta learns from their mistakes. I have faith that we will, because I feel like this is one thing the city is good at, is hosting sports events. We might not have the best pro teams out there. We might choke in championship games, but what Atlanta is known for is hosting these type of sporting events. So I hope as a city we can be able to learn from our mistakes and not let history repeat itself at the Super Bowl and at the Final Four. Before we bring on Sean, this is being recorded on a Friday. And if you're a Georgia fan, you've seen the writing on the wall with this situation for a while, especially when it looked like there was really no competition between Fromm and Eason in the Vanderbilt game, and also too when Justin Fields committed to the University of Georgia, that we would eventually see Jacob Eason most likely transfer to another school and end his collegiate playing career at another university. And that is going to happen. It is official. There was a lot of movement going on. The Seattle Times actually put out an article recently thinking that Jacob Eason was going to transfer, and when he transferred, he was going to the University of Washington. And that's still not official yet. He is going to transfer, but now he's sort of on the free agent market, seeing what his options are. And I think if he goes to Washington, I think that's a good choice because, one, it's closer to home. Two, Washington's in a place right now where they are looking to compete for championships, and especially national championships, just not winning the Pac-12. So I feel like with Chris Peterson there, that's a good situation Jacob Eason is going into, and they run a lot of spread concepts at Washington, so that's going to help Jacob Eason, because that was one of the reasons why he chose the University of Georgia, because he wanted to be that that high draft pick going into the NFL, and because a lot of people were comparing him out of high school to Matt Stafford, and he definitely has some of the intangibles that Matt Stafford had with that arm, can make every throw. And before I close this story out, I just want to say, when Fromm took over, it wasn't like Eason was just kind of had his head down and was pouty the whole season. He really became a teammate to Jake Fromm because of that situation, and was really just a good teammate altogether, because seeing him after the SEC championship, that it seemed like he was really happy just for Georgia, and just seeing them win an SEC championship and seeing them win a Rose Bowl. So Jacob Eason has been supportive the whole time, which I can see if you could think that, oh, you think this kid's going to have a bad attitude and he's eventually going to transfer someplace else. No, he's actually been the opposite. And today on his Instagram account, he said, "Thank you, UGA." And that was kind of his way that he was going out into the sunset. But personally, as a Georgia fan, I hope Jacob Eason the best, because he came into a time at Georgia where he was going to be the answer. He was going to be the guy, and unfortunately didn't work out that way. But it was a time where the culture at Georgia was changing. So I feel like this season showed a lot in his character, him being supportive when he really didn't have to. So props to Jacob Eason for that. And here,
Antonio, I've done that before, made that journey. So yeah, how are you doing? How was your holidays? And what was that clinic that you were out in San Antonio for?
Yeah, Alex, hey man, great to talk to you. So holidays were great. Staying here with Chris. I got three kids at home, so did the whole Christmas thing here, and my oldest is only 7, so obviously they're all amped up and fired up for Santa and all that great stuff. So did Christmas, and then I work with National Football Academies, so we do quarterback camps all over the country. And so that's what brought me to San Antonio. We did our 3-day camp out there in San Antonio, a school called Cornerstone Christian School out there in San Antonio. Beautiful, beautiful school. So, 3 days developing quarterbacks, ranging age from, like 4th grade all the way through rising seniors in high school. And just a good way to kick off kind of their off-season training and development, right? Spend some time really focusing on the mechanics and, kind of the building the skills and developing, hopefully that they can now take that and spend the next 6 months leading into their season starting to improve their game. So it was awesome. And the coaches I get the opportunity to work with at these camps are just, in my opinion, some of the best in the country at what they do. So it's one of those, like, we're doing the camp and training kids, and I'm getting better every day just being around those other coaches as well. So it's always a good time.
Cool. I saw on Instagram, were you in first class, or were you doing the economy comfort thing?
So this is a funny story, right? Because it's Southwest, and so you're in the different chutes or whatever, and you pick whatever seat you want. And both there and back, it was one of those, the flight's going to be full. So I'm B. I'm early enough where, you can pick an aisle, you can pick a window, whatever, but you know it's going to fill up. So those people coming after you are going to start sitting in all the middle seats, right? So it didn't matter to me. I just grabbed the window. At least I wouldn't have to get up when someone else came in. I'm pretty easy as a flyer. It doesn't bother me.
Gotcha.
But where I lucked out was the guy on the aisle both times, I guess, just had that face like that no one wanted to ask him to get up. So both flights, literally the only empty seat on the entire plane was the middle seat between me and the guy in the aisle. Maybe it was me, but I'm blaming on him.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not a window person. I look down and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to see that. Like I have a little fear of heights, but
I'm honestly there too. I like the window because I don't want to have to get up if someone else has to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Right, and then you're doing that whole thing. So I just like to park it and not have to move until the flight's over. But I don't look out the window. I'm with you on that one. I close my eyes at takeoff and landing and just look straight ahead. So.
Well, I'm one of those people. It's like I have to look. I don't really want to, but it's like I have to. Like it's that curiosity.
Sure. Yeah, I don't have that at all. No.
But speaking of curiosity, I am curious. With the national championship, obviously.
Segue, man, killing the segue. Go ahead.
that I try to. That national championship game was really great game, especially if you're a fan of college football, even though it was 2 SEC teams going at it. But I have to ask, since the big headline with the quarterbacks, have you ever seen something like that, Sean, where you have an established quarterback in Hurts, but has trouble throwing the deep ball, and Alabama utilizing his legs, but Georgia was just taking those plays away, and then you put in a true freshman like Tua to get some help in the vertical passing game. Have you ever, with your years of coaching and being around quarterbacks that you've trained, have you ever seen something like that?
It's funny because on one hand, I want to say you probably see it more than you think, or maybe you don't see it, but there were probably opportunities to have done that more often than you think, but for a number of reasons, and normally it's, coaches scared to take the criticism if they make that move and it doesn't work out. You don't see it, and you definitely never see it on that stage, right? But it's just a halftime adjustment, right? The difference is normally, like, you can do it with the same quarterback, right? Maybe you go in, you say, hey, we're going to run the ball. We want to be physical up front, create, movement, keep the defense on the field, and that will open up our passing game. And then maybe that doesn't work. So at halftime, you go, let's look back at some film real quick. Let's figure out, okay, we need to attack more in the passing game. Obviously, we're down 13 points. Let's be more aggressive. And then you come out in the second half with that new mentality. The problem with Alabama and with Hurts is he doesn't do both well enough, right? So most kids just say, okay, well, the same quarterback, will just have him open it up a little bit. And unfortunately, it's a little bit of a weakness in Jalen's game. So for Alabama to make the halftime adjustments they felt they needed to make, they really only had one option. And that was to make that move.
I feel like one of the things that Kirk Herbstreit brought up in this game, because he was going to explain how a true freshman quarterback can have so much success right away, and he talked about the opening. Then he got cut off by a play and stuff. So I know that you're involved in the opening and a lot of these quarterback off-season camps. So, Sean, if you could just explain, like, how is it that a kid that was in high school pretty much a year ago can now all of a sudden win a national championship? Because usually with the quarterback position in high school, I heard Lou Holtz say this before, that you don't win a national championship with a freshman quarterback. Obviously, that narrative has changed. So what are some of the things? Obviously, I feel like another factor to that is you have to be in that, like, 5-star category that you can handle that pressure. But how does that happen, though?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just the way the development of that position specifically has changed. The accelerated development now of the quarterback in general obviously is a lot different than it was 20 years ago. And you're right, it's camps, it's private quarterback coaches, right? It's how much more in depth the coaches in youth football are now. Youth football coaches 15 years ago weren't largely going to, like, clinics, right? That was a high school coach thing, and there'd be a couple of youth sessions. But now it's like everybody who coaches 7th grade football is doing, the USA Development Training Program for youth football. They're learning how to coach tackling better. They're learning how to do this. Then they're going to clinics and that mindset. So the coaches know more. They're smarter, and they're starting to instill these really good mechanics in their players at an earlier level. So you combine that, then they go to high school, and now it's threefold there at the high school level. You just have, in the quarterback world in general, offensive coordinators and head coaches at the high school level running more spread offense and college style type offenses. So these players now, when they go to the next level, have played within that system. It feels comfortable for them. And like I said, just that personal development that they're seeking in addition to what they get at the high school level. And we all, that's the big key. That's the big part of it, Yeah. As much as, I always like to pat yourself on the back about a kid that you train that, that goes on and does some good things. I mean, I'm not touching that kid nearly the way his high school coach is every single day. But they get that. And then if they're going to seek a little additional outside of that in private training, or like you said, a League 11 regional camps and, getting to spend a couple weeks at the opening. You just see him more and more now. And it's only going to go forward. You're going to see more, really all positions, but quarterback specifically, guys, true freshmen that are ready to be successful at that next level. And the reason Lou Holtz said you can't win was because he's, his mind is 20 years ago.
Right, he's in that old school mindset.
Exactly right. So, and he's not wrong. I mean, 20 years ago, you probably weren't going to win with a freshman quarterback, and then even, 5-6 years ago, you'd see it at maybe your group of 5 schools, right? Like the big schools, they weren't going to play a freshman, but, they have, 1 or 2 here and there, but there's some of the smaller schools that maybe, were able to grab a kid who should have been a Power 5 guy and slipped to them, and he's really developed for what they normally have in their league or whatever. But now obviously you're seeing the biggest programs in the country. And you saw it with Georgia the last 2 years, right? I mean, it was Eason and then it was Fromm. Talking about true freshmen. It Hurts, last year as a true freshman, and now Tua. Like it shouldn't be that surprising anymore. These kids are just better prepared when they get there. I mean, think about the kids coming out. You better believe Justin Fields, whether or not he has the opportunity to do it, he's a kid that I bet on being ready to contribute as a freshman. Trevor Lawrence, going to Clemson, talking about the local Georgia guys, that's a guy who's, whether or not he gets the opportunity, I would bet on him being ready to contribute. So, I just think you see more and more of that now each year.
Now, I just have to ask from a coaching perspective because you've had experience coaching. If you're in Dayball's shoes or Nick Saban's shoes, what do you say to that kid in that moment? Do you just say, "Hey, we need your help in trying to open up the vertical pass," or is it one of those things? "Hey, go win this for us." Like, what is the communication or the non-communication that's going on in a moment like that? Because that has to be really high stress, high pressure situation.
Yeah, I imagine it is. I think the key is to keep it as normal as you can, right? And remember, you laid the foundation over the last 18 weeks of the season, right? So coming out of fall camp, and every week, and you're making sure Tua is getting reps in practice, and week 3, that kid was prepared going into the game to play, right? So it's we gotta get out of the mindset. It's not as if Tua walked into that game Monday night figuring I'm not even gonna tie my cleats because I'm just gonna sit here on the sideline. Let me know when the game's over. He was prepared mentally going in from warm-ups, and that's just the way these guys at a higher level, that's how they attack every moment they're on the football field. So mentally, he felt like he was already ready. I'm not sure you have to give him any kind of a 3 good words or a speech to get him ready to go, and that's a big piece, and that's a big credit to him, right? Because it's tough, and now you're hearing stories where he was starting to get a little frustrated for not playing. Thought maybe he was better than Hurts at practice. Maybe he was even thinking about transferring if he didn't get a chance and everything like that. So, but for him to stick with it and have that attitude to be prepared, because you never know, you're always just one play away in that situation. It's a big credit to him. But no, it's I think you probably go to halftime, say, hey, listen, we're this is what we need to do, and just, hey, we're confident in you. We know what you're capable of. We wouldn't be put you in a situation we didn't think you could be successful, and just go out and do what you do. That's it. Try not to make the moment any bigger. Just go play football and have fun with it.
With Jalen Hurts, when he got pulled out of that game, he seemed to take it in a positive way, and it seemed like he had the attitude of, hey, whatever makes the team better, whatever makes the team win. I just want to know when a situation, I just want to know with college compared to the NFL, because, in the NFL, it's a guy's job, so his relationship with his backup quarterback is pretty much non-existent, which in college it seems like that it's more about the team. So if you could just kind of explain that dynamic in college between the backup quarterback, his relationship with the starters, or with the starter.
I mean, I definitely don't think it's universal. I think it has a lot to do with the culture in each program, right? And how the coaches, and specifically the quarterback coach, right? How he talks to his players in meetings every day, and how that camaraderie is kind of built. I think we all know that not many places probably have what it seems from the outside looking in that Alabama has developed between those guys and those two players. They seem to genuinely like each other and get along, and it's hard, just like any other job in the world. If you're competing for somebody for the same promotion, it's like, it sometimes can roll the edges a little bit. Now, like I said, do I know how much Jalen really is supportive, or is he smart enough to know that every single camera in that building is on him, and this isn't the time to throw your helmet and go pout on the sideline, right?
That's a really good point. I didn't think about that.
But we've seen, I can't remember, watching Tennessee games this year, and, I don't want to start naming quarterbacks' names in a negative way, but like you see guys.
We know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you see guys come out of games and they're not within 10 feet of the new quarterback, and you're mumbling to yourself with your helmet off, with your head down, and that's the stuff that obviously it plays really poorly on camera. Now, I don't blame the kid for being ticked he's not playing, but I think there's a way to at least not be divisive amongst the rest of your team. But I don't know. Like I said, it'd be interesting to be more inside that, to know how much of that was show, how much of it is trying to do the right thing. If you really want to be cynical, it could be like relief, right? Like man, I don't know. I don't know Jalen Hurts at all, but if you wanted to be cynical, you wonder, is he okay that he's out and somebody else now has the stress and responsibility and pressure of having to win this game? You know what I mean? Like, you don't know how each of these kids are built. Mm-hmm. It was funny to me. Like, so obviously social media reaction with the way Jalen handled that situation was really, everybody, a lot of applause and a lot of credit to Jalen for handling it, which I think he deserves. A part of me thought to myself, that's great. Like, I loved his leadership in that moment. But what I probably would have rather had was a quarterback who just played better so he didn't have to get, taken out at halftime.
Right. Right.
Let's pull back on the reins a little bit here. You love his intangibles, his leadership, the support he had for the backup and everything else, and that's a credit to that culture, like I said. But at the end of the day, play a little better and you don't put your, and then no one's talking about culture maybe or how great of a leader you are, but, that's probably the better path, I guess. I don't know.
What do you feel like the future of the Alabama quarterback position is? Because right now it's pretty much up in the air, and it looks like it's going to be a competition. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I'd be shocked if there was a situation where Jalen Hurts beat out Tua going forward. Barring injury, but like I said, there are people that watch that team play that around week 4 or 5 this year was thinking that. They just thought it was a matter of time. It's funny. We said the same thing a little bit with Clemson and Kelly Bryant, and when all you've done is win, You know, like when you're undefeated or you're, 25-2 or whatever Jalen Hurts was, and, you got all the way to the championship game last year, and it's a hard time to take your quarterback out. It's easy when you're 3-6 and you're going into the last game of the season. Yeah, we got to change something up. Let's give the other guy a shot. But when all you've ever done is win the whole time you've been there, it's hard to make that move. So I understand why Alabama did. But I think a lot of people around that program were like, hey, I think this Tua kid, because you have to be two-dimensional as a quarterback.
Right.
I've explained before in what, earlier talks about my kind of affinity for the dual threat quarterback, right? Just that ability to create plays when things break down with your feet, how that kind of gives you that extra edge sometimes. But you have to be able to make throws when it's 3rd and 7 too, right?
Right.
So people got to understand that to be a dual threat, it goes both ways. The one we all think about is, he's a quarterback, but does he run wherever you put the number, like a 4.7, above or below 4.7, right? If he runs below 4.7, you're like, man, this guy's a really good athlete. He's a dual threat. But if you run a 4.9, well, he's more of a pocket passer, right? That's kind of the way that works.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't, every kid that runs a 4.5 who plays quarterback, I don't consider dual threat, right? If he can't throw, then he doesn't get credit for being the other side of that.
Right.
I think that's the biggest difference with a kid like Deshaun Watson. The reason Deshaun Watson and Clemson won the national championship last year, and why Deshaun's having the success in the NFL that for a while we would say a dual threat quarterback normally doesn't have, because he throws the ball well enough to play at those levels. And that's the reason Clemson beat Alabama last year, in my opinion, was Deshaun Watson made throws and Jalen Hurts couldn't. And I think last, Monday in the national championship game this year, you were seeing the same thing from, although I don't think he played exceptionally well, made a few throws and Jalen Hurts couldn't, right?
Yeah.
And that was the difference. And you're like, man, this is going to be 2 years in a row where, hell, Jalen's 25-2, but it looks like they're going to lose again. And the story the next day is going to be Alabama needs to find a quarterback who can make throws.
Right.
And then, they go to Tua and he kind of saves the day.
Right, with the three touchdowns, including the game winner. But I want to talk about the Georgia side right now. And
sure.
Just from a coaching standpoint, when you have, with Fromm's performance, like you said, it was exceptional, except for 2 times he turned over the ball. But it seemed like on those picks that it just kind of seemed mind-boggling, because one of them was off of a helmet and got batted, and the guy just was in the right position at the right time. And then you had another one where throwing down the field, and the same thing, ball just got batted, and the guy just ended up with the ball. So it's not like you're looking at the free safety and throwing exactly to the free safety, like a kind of like a clean interception, so to speak. But it's still, an interception's an interception. So if you were Fromm's coach, what are some things that you would coach him up on to avoid those type of situations? Because I know it's one of those things that height isn't a friend of his in those type of situations.
Yeah, well, when I watch Fromm, he's obviously phenomenally talented, right? So he's a kid that you love the way he throws the football. He has good anticipation. The way he throws the back shoulder fade. He's almost become his go-to, right? Maybe almost to a fault. I'll talk about that in a second. But, there's a lot of things he does naturally. But, this is that blessing and curse. We just talked about how great these freshman quarterbacks are once they get to college and they're ready to compete. That doesn't mean they have the maturity and the ability to read coverage and compete the same way that your proven 3-year starter does. So I think a lot of his development is going to come just from now having that full year of the system underneath him, right? I mean, he early enrolled, so he was there in the spring, he was there in the fall, played well, people noticed, but it wasn't like he had a year of off-season thinking he was going to be the starter this year. Is that right? So now he gets that. So the way you're preparing meetings, the way you watch film, in the off-season, it's just a whole different, comfort level now where he kind of understands what the expectations of the coaches are. And now he's better prepared. So like you said, it's not that, he misread the coverage and threw right to a safety. But going into next year, he now has a better idea of maybe personnel and how quickly, regardless of what coverage they're in, how quickly can they close, uncapped space, or, how quickly can they make plays in the football. And now he just has like that next level mentally. Mm-hmm. It allows him to make smarter decisions. But then I think the next piece is being comfortable. Well, I would say he's definitely a guy who can make all the throws, right? That's a cliche we all like to talk about.
Right.
I saw him when I watched him kind of default to the throws he felt most comfortable with. And all quarterbacks do, right?
Right.
I think almost sometimes he would throw the back shoulder fade to a fault where, so the idea is obviously we're trying to get vertical. We're trying to run past that defender over the top. And if we don't think we can get by him, then the quarterback will throw back shoulder, right? And it basically becomes almost like a comeback because I can't get over the top to throw the deep ball, throw back shoulder and catch him off guard. And it's a very successful, it's almost impossible to defend when you play it right. I would argue there are times where I think the Georgia receivers can get over the top, but Fromm is so comfortable that he'll throw back shoulder more often than not.
Do you think that's just because he is a freshman, because he wasn't expected to be in this role now that he's in this role? Because it's like, I get it from a football standpoint. Once the season is underway, like you have to just roll with what you got.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt. And listen, it's not like a criticism unique to Fromm.
Right.
Every single quarterback is gonna, especially when the pressure builds up, they're gonna default to the two or three things they think they do the best. And I'm not even arguing that they shouldn't. Mm-hmm. I think the point is going into next year, let there be 5 things that you feel like you can do best. And
gotcha.
Not 3,
not
right?
Just that one, yeah.
Yeah, and so now, even when the pressure mounts, you feel like you don't get locked into like, 3rd and 8, I need this one. I got my best throw, the one I never miss is this, so that's the one I'm going, you know what I mean? And kind of set yourself in a box there. So that's it. So more full field stuff and working through his progression, across the field. Those are usually the things that you see quarterbacks, start to develop more and more once they've got, true gameplay at that higher level under their belt.
Gotcha. Another thing I want to hit on, you mentioned Justin Fields earlier in this conversation, and I wanted to get your take for a while on this situation because obviously you mentioned that you think Justin is somehow going to see the field, and I just want to know, just from a coaching perspective, because I'm pretty sure you've been around or have witnessed something like this before, because you have an established starter in Jake Fromm now, and Fields is talented enough to be on the field. So how do you manage a situation like this? Is it like what we saw with Tim Tebow back in 2006 with the Florida Gators, or is it one of those things that that he's just going to have to take a red shirt because of he's going to have to take a red shirt because there's already an established starter?
Yeah, I think the way coaches are now, they realize, in the way that they look at red shirt, I think that becomes the the last option, right? It's kind of like the back pocket plan B type of thing, especially because there's only so much depth they have at quarterback, right? Same thing Auburn did this year, same thing Alabama. Like, sure, the logic is, well, let me let our QB1 start. Let me redshirt this kid we think is going to be really good.
Right.
So now I create some separation. I get more years of that next kid instead of like almost wasting a year where, But the reality is all those schools didn't have enough depth to do that. Like Alabama couldn't redshirt Tua this year because the only other quarterback they have is Mac Jones, right? He's a walk-on.
Right.
So same thing with Georgia. Once obviously once Eason got hurt, but going into the year, it was basically just Eason and Fromm anyway. Right. And then you have, Ramsey who hung around and another walk-on kid, the kid from Georgia, Stetson Bennett. And especially Alabama, right? So we all know Alabama once Jalen won that job as a true freshman, well, anybody who's a sophomore above is leaving. Because once the kid who's a freshman beats you out, you're never going to play.
Right.
Right. So because of the way those situations got created, like what else do you do? So I think that's part of it where you'd love to maybe redshirt, but if you only have 2 or 3 scholarship quarterbacks, you don't have that luxury. But it'll be interesting. I'll give a shout out to Will Hewlett, who's one of my friends and I think one of the best quarterback trainer guys in the country, just a smart guy when it comes to this kind of stuff. But he posed that question on Tuesday. Watching Alabama and seeing what Tua did, how do coaches now and offensive coordinators have to kind of reevaluate how they work with their QB2, right, with their backup?
Right.
Because you just realize how important it is to make sure that kid's really ready to play. So do you get him on the field more in early games of the season? Maybe it's not just garbage time, right? Like, don't wait till, hopefully we get up 4 touchdowns and play him a little bit. Do you need to start maybe looking at inserting him into some situations? And, obviously if you think he's capable of playing, if he's a true, obviously what they have with Hurts and Tua, those guys are, they're 2 really, really good quarterbacks.
Let me ask you this, Sean. Yeah. If you get, say Georgia, for example, does play Fields this year,
yeah,
and they only use him in red zone packages, kind of like a wildcat type thing where he just uses his legs and hardly uses his arms, would that hurt a quarterback's development?
I don't think at all. I don't think it does.
Think so?
No, not at all. Because now it's like he never threw at practice. If they made him like a running back, and he's not consistently running the full offense during the week and throwing, and then I guess you obviously say that would hurt his development. But you're talking about the difference between the kid just standing on the sidelines or at least doing 3 or 4 running plays a game.
Right, yeah.
Right, so clearly anything he does on the field is only going to help. Honestly, I thought that's what they were going to do at Auburn this year. I thought there was going to be opportunities to get Malik Willis more involved. And maybe it is in a wildcat package or maybe, something like that to utilize his ability a little bit. And then it would have been interesting, because I think if there was more of a comfort level with that coaching staff, with him being able to produce in real situations, then a couple of those games where the offense is struggling, you wonder if maybe they would have been more open to making a move. In fact, the thing with Alabama is clearly Saban had the confidence to make that move. And I think that's the big thing going forward with these different coaches. If I'm Georgia, one, because I think Justin Fields might be one of my best offensive players and what he's able to do, it's hard to not have that guy on the field next year. And if I'm creative and I'm going to make my offense as explosive as possible, I want to find a way for him to be utilized a little bit. So maybe there is an option for packages. But at the end of the day, he's going to get better. I don't think there's any magic number. So Justin Fields is going to be say week 9, God forbid, Fromm gets hurt and Fields has to play. Well, Fields is going to be better if he had gotten 30 reps earlier in the year. And he's going to be even better if he got 80 reps, right? And better even still if he got 150. Does that make sense? So, like,
that does make sense.
The more he gets an opportunity to get, and you got to combine all of it. It's when you're up 4 touchdowns on the FCS school and he gets to play a whole quarter, that's awesome. You know, but put him in. Maybe your offense is struggling. You can't get the passing game going, and you know, put him in for a series of wildcat in the beginning of the second quarter. You know, I think there's value in that too. So it'll be interesting, and then you can truly evaluate him. Yeah, and then maybe you get to the point where you say, yeah, he maybe makes our offense more productive, and that's where you could see, you know, kind of in the same way. Obviously, the injury is what aided Fromm jumping Eason, but you know, Eason was healthy by 3 weeks later, and Fromm kept that job. So who knows? It'll be interesting to see what Fields does if he has the opportunity. But then, if some reason like they don't want to go that route and they think they can get by with Fromm and he stays healthy, and you get to week 7 and you haven't played Fields yet, then you go, maybe you think about your plan B. Right. And you say, okay, well, you know, if we can finish this off, then and not have to put him in the game, then maybe we can redshirt him, create that separation, because they're obviously 2 incredibly talented quarterbacks. So the more years you can get out of those guys, the better.
So with that, you just think once you get this guy on campus that he'll pretty much be in line with whatever the team is going to decide or coaches are going to decide?
I think so. Listen, you'd like to think that a lot of this conversation happened in the recruiting process. So I can't imagine that this exact conversation didn't come up between Coach Smart, Jim Chaney, you know, Justin and Justin's dad, or, you know, whoever, right? Like, because that weighs into where Justin might feel like his best opportunity to go play is. So I got to imagine they're saying, hey, you know, this is what we're thinking. Now, all this stuff's going to change once we start playing, but I think at least a mindset of this is what we see ourselves wanting to do. So, I mean, hopefully, because you'd hate for, you know, Justin go in thinking one thing and then find out after he signs his letter, like he's already enrolled there now, that all of a sudden that's not what we're doing anymore.
Right.
But I think most of these guys, you know, they make a commitment to the school, and a large part of it's because of that coach they'll be playing for. And they have to have trust that this coach is going to do handle me the best way he can for my own development and for the success of the team. And you just have to trust that. So if that means Coach Smart says, hey, I think we want to redshirt you, then I think as a quarterback, you're okay with that. You're comfortable with that. Or if it's, listen, we want to get you, 2 series at least in the first game of the season, and that's our goal. We want to play you as much as we can. And I think you're okay with that as well. You kind of have to, just like any level, you have to just trust the coach. And that's the whole problem, right? Is with this, when you're signing and then coaches are leaving and now the guy you signed up to trust isn't there anymore. And
right.
That's where the situation occurs. But obviously places that have some consistency, like Georgia now and Auburn and Alabama, you feel confident that guy's going to be there for you.
I guess it's one of those things, once you get on campus, your kind of mindset changes and you kind of get humbled as a college freshman, and yeah, the world is a different place than you think it is. But I just want to ask you, kind of changing gears right now, talking a little bit NFL.
Sure.
I know that you predominantly do a lot of age ranges of quarterback training, and you do a lot of high school kids. You have Malik at Auburn. But I just have to ask you, Sean, if the call ever came to a high-profile quarterback, like say Matt Ryan called you after we finished this conversation and just be like, or when he was done with the NFL season, be like, hey, Sean, I need to go in a different perspective. I want a different coach. Do you just have like kind of I know you probably don't have anything written down because it's probably too premature to do that, but I just want to know, like, just from what you see or know, just because of the exposure these high-profile quarterbacks have, do you kind of have like a game plan in your mind of how like you're gonna work Matt Ryan out if he ever calls you, or someone like Cam Newton or another NFL quarterback?
You know, it's an interesting question. I mean, one, like that there's no chance that happens, right? So that's the funny thing is, like, you know, you have to kind of have the self-awareness to know how these things work, kind of understand the business a little bit. So in reality, like, no one gets a surprise call from, you know what I mean, from like, and all of a sudden it's the best kid they've ever trained. You know what I mean? I don't think that,
right.
To some extent, it's just kind of in the circles you run through, you know. Now, to your point, that doesn't mean I don't think I can, you know, coach and develop a player at any level, you know, because I think a lot of what guys need to be successful, a lot of the developmental stuff is, you know, is similar at any level, right? Like the core, you know, pieces of the biomechanics, or the, you know, what's necessary to be consistent in your throwing motion or your footwork on off-platform throws or whatever the case may be. But as much as I'd say so much of it is universal, at that level, you know, it's that 3% difference that makes this guy who he is.
Right.
Is what you're really focused on. So, you know, I don't think there's any game plan you can have going in until you know who the quarterback is, spend, you know, 3 weeks just, you know, going nuts watching every film you can get of him playing, and then evaluating him live, you know what I mean? And then you kind of figure it out from there, kind of, you know,
right,
honing on a couple things. But I think you're seeing it. You're seeing it even at the top levels, you know, with Tom Brady and Matt Ryan now, and so many of these guys are going down to Adam Dideau and a company called 3D QB, and they've now kind of established themselves as the, you know, the guys to go work with, right?
Right.
And it's because of Brady, you know, and those guys start going there, so now it's okay, that's where we want to. But even at 3D QB, it's a collaborative effort, right? So, you know, the first thing I would do if Matt Ryan called me tomorrow is like call Will Hewlett, right? And call, you know, guys that I really respect, you know, Darren Flack and Dub Maddox and, you know, and Quincy Avery, right? And get the five of us together, right? Because it's all about helping that person, whether it's the kid in 8th grade or the NFL player. You just want to help make them successful, and the credit part of it doesn't matter. Like, you get nothing from it being my guy. There's no value in that. You'd rather just say, hey, this kid, this guy, this player, this is trusting you with, you know, at the NFL level, his career. Mm-hmm. You know, to me, it's more important to make sure he's getting the best advice, and like I said, enough self-awareness on my part to know that to get him the best advice is, you know, I want to bring in as many smart people as I can.
Now, with that being said, and let's kind of run with the scenario for a second. Yeah. What would you do from a coaching standpoint to help him with the turnovers? Because right now he has 12 interceptions to 20 touchdowns.
Yeah. You know, I chalk that up more really to the comfort level within that offensive system, you know, adjusting to a new offensive coordinator. I mean, think about it. Like, he didn't get worse. Like, he's not worse mechanically than he was last year. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen, right? It's not like he captured something in a bottle and now, like, forgot how to throw as accurately, right? I just don't, you know, I think some things can maybe get wrong. They need to be fine-tuned. But, you know, you give him the benefit of the doubt. He put that time in. You know, he was down there at 3D QB, and and made some adjustments that helped him and was exactly the same thing he did that made him have his MVP year last year. So a lot of times it's just the situation, right? Maybe you're down, maybe your running game isn't getting going the way it was last year. So now the game's tougher. So now you're in a lot more 3rd and 9s, where last year it was all 3rd and 2s, right? And now you're having to throw more in tight situations, and maybe the defenses you're playing this year are better than the defenses you played last year, right? Or, just all those factors come into play. And, it's what ruined the careers, in my opinion, of guys like Jay Cutler, who had a new head coach and a new offensive coordinator every single year.
Right.
And then a guy like Tom Brady, who, is, even with McDaniels leaving and then coming back, but he's had so much consistency with his play caller and his head coach. And so that's the key, it's having the comfort. And just like we were talking about earlier with Fromm, like now as he understands the offense a year better, I think those make big differences. So I think, and you're even starting to see it now, right? I think Matt Ryan obviously has played better these last 3 or 4 games of the season than he did early on. It was pretty rocky at the start. So I think just finding that comfort level a little bit with the play calling and the whole offensive system with Sarkisian, and I think it just gets better as you go forward.
Great stuff. I just want to talk briefly about Marcus Mariota. He's one of those guys that made it to the NFL level. Obviously, he can make all the throws, but the way the Titans' offense is designed is run first and pass second, kind of like the pass is a little bit of a rarity, and that's pretty rare with the NFL. So I just want to know, like, how do you coach a guy like that's in a unique system like that is run first, that's all about option read and RPOs, and that is pretty much just hand the ball off?
Yeah, well, obviously you have to have the skill set that allows you to run that offense, right? So part of why they run the offense they do, or part of the reason that Mariota is the quarterback of that team, is because his skill set fits what they want to do offensively, right? But for a young quarterback, if you can, I don't think anybody's desire is, let me take my rookie quarterback. I know Mariota's into his 3rd year now, but we got a young quarterback and have him throw 35 times a game. Nobody's like Drew Breesing it with a first, second year quarterback, because it's just not the recipe to be successful. For all those reasons we've talked about already, here in the last hour. It's just they're not ready maybe to have that much pressure on them. So I think what the beauty and why Mariota has a great first year and obviously battled through injury last year, but playing well again this year is because he doesn't have to make every single play. Mm-hmm. That being said, though, he has to be just as good, like I said earlier, on 3rd and 7 in a key moment as Drew Brees has to be. Right? So from a development of the quarterback, he needs to have the same consistency and the same ability to control and fire and get good power in his lower body and core and be stable and have good footwork as anybody in the league. What's nice about his ability is he doesn't have to rely only on that. So if plays break down, if he misses a read, if he's late, if he gets pressure, that ability to make a little something happen. One of the reasons offensive coordinators kind of love that athletic quarterback is because they can kind of almost make the wrong play call, and sometimes the guy
get it right on the field.
Well, think back to that national championship game just for a quick minute. The key play in that game is that 3rd and 2, where it looks like Hurts is going to take a sack. Right. And he somehow spins out of 3 tackles and ends up going around the left side for a big first down. If he doesn't have that ability, and now Hurts would too. Hurts has that escapability too. I'm not comparing, but if a quarterback doesn't have that escapability, that's a sack, and they punt, and that's it.
Right.
They don't win that game. that play, and then obviously finishing off with a touchdown, and that's what changed that game for them. So, that's how close it is. So that's the thing with Mariota. I always talked about, even at the high school level, sometimes you have different quarterbacks, and one of the tendencies you see is if I have a quarterback who's really good, like can really throw the football, you'll see coaches sometimes want to have him throw 35 times a game. And I don't know if that's always the best way to be successful. Just because he can throw doesn't mean like you have to have him throw all the time. I always like the analogy, if I have one quarterback who throws really well and one quarterback who's okay, if they both throw 10 times a game in key situations, the good quarterback has a higher percentage of completing those 10 balls. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
I don't want to throw 30 times with them. Maybe I do, depending on what the rest of my team's comprised of and where my other skill players are, their levels. But I just like the fact that the better quarterback just allows me to have a better opportunity completing those crucial plays, third down conversion or, in a key to just get a drive going to give your defense another 3 minutes of rest, those key situations. That's the separator. So you see Mariota, the best part about where he's at in that program, and it's similar to like Deshaun Watson and similar to a lot of these teams that have really good defenses and really good run games, is you have to be great to play quarterback in the NFL and succeed, but the less you have to do is certainly going to help.
Right. Well, thank you, Sean, for your time. And if anyone's interested to get in contact with you about the situation, I'm not going to give out numbers here, but where's a great place to reach you on social media? Yeah,
I always tell people Twitter. I'm at QB Coach McEvoy, MCEVOY. So at QB Coach McEvoy on Twitter. And I love Twitter. I said this before. I'm active on it. So that's the easiest way. Shoot me a DM or comment on something or, but always happy to help.
Well, thank you, Sean. We appreciate the time.
No doubt, man. No doubt. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Again, I just want to thank Sean McEvoy for joining the show today. He always gives great insight, especially on the quarterback position, because I know that's the most talked about position probably in all of sports and definitely in football. So definitely appreciate his insight in that area. And if you're a first-time listener, we definitely appreciate you tuning into us and seeing what we're all about. But we are with favoritefan.com. Like I said earlier in the podcast, we got a lot of great articles out there about the NBA that my man Gregory has written. So be sure to check those articles out after you listen to this podcast, because we got a lot of great stuff out there for you, because we are a website all about fans and their experiences, their stories, and just giving you insight into what's going on with the sports scene in Atlanta and just around the nation in general. So be sure to check all that stuff out at Fans Favorite Fan. If you're a hardcore sports fan, you're just gonna love this website. I guarantee it. And it's not like one of these cheap websites that you just see. We are first class all the way, and you definitely want to check it out. It's definitely worth the look into, because it's just a first class website that we got going on. So definitely be sure to check that out. And we definitely appreciate all the people that are deciding to check out podcast form and go more into podcast form than sports talk radio. And we appreciate you making that switch. it's less scripted than sports talk radio, but we definitely need your help, especially if you're a first-time listener. If you like what you heard, be sure to hit that like button, because there's a like button on SoundCloud. There's also a like button on the YouTube page, and we're in an interesting era in time where you can give instant feedback. And if you want to give feedback on the show, be sure to hit us up in the comment section, especially if you want to talk about the national championship or the NFL playoffs, or how Matt Ryan's just thrown too many interceptions this year. I definitely want to hear what you guys thinking, what your opinions on those particular subjects. Also, too, be sure to, if you want to tweet at me, I'm at Alexander71004. I know that's a long Twitter handle, but again, it's Alex7. It's Alexander, excuse me. It's Alexander71004. So be sure to hit me up at Twitter if you have any questions or comments or things of that nature. I will definitely get back to you, and I'll put my Twitter description and Sean's Twitter handles. I'll put them both in the show description. So thanks again, and we will see you guys. Well, we'll hopefully hear from you guys down the road.